It's just going to be we talk until we go. If this is 2 hours long, I don't care.
Yeah.
All right, we're live.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the Drunken Dice podcast. I say we drunken because every episode we're going to talk about the different drink we're having while we record the podcast. We're going to tell you what we're having, and at the end, we're going to tell you what we like about it, or if we didn't like it, if we're trying something new. So I'll go first, and I'm starting with Woodford Reserve Standard Bourbon. It's one of the things I really like. Good notes. It's a really good, just do it all bourbon, and I really like it.
Well, and me, because I have to be better than Alex just slightly, I'm going with the Double Oaked Woodford because it's just so damn smooth. I love it. I love it so much.
And I am going for a classic German beer from the Hofbrauhaus in Munich.
So Peter's the one getting fancy here. And if anyone doesn't know, I'm Alex. The one who's one-upping me is Jim, and the European beer guy is Peter. And today we are going to be talking about 3 different tabletop role-playing games and how their dice systems are used for the game. A lot of people are standard with the standard like Dungeons & Dragons D20 system, so we'll probably start with that one. But we have a couple weird ones as well that I think some people might be interested in.
That's true. Speaking of dice, though, I rolled 3 nat 20s last night.
Must be nice for you.
Not against you, Peter. So, for those who don't know, I think I've talked about it in videos of ours, but I crit Peter all the time when I DM. No big deal. He knows to expect death.
It's a running joke now that Peter dies a lot.
Oh, yeah.
There's a song about it.
There's a whole
song. There is.
But like,
he himself wrote.
Yeah. But last night, dude, my diet was fire. It was like, oh, this trap, like, is there a trap? Nat 20.
Yeah, I was not. I was run. This is a group check. Make perception checks. Nat 20. Well, it's a good thing mine didn't count. Because it was like a 4. Yay.
Peter, do your dice ever get hot?
Only when I'm trying to not look at boobs, apparently.
That's right.
That's like the only time that it was like, oh yeah, nat 20. Other than that, it's been like,
and then
animal handling, nat 20. Fantastic.
And then 30 minutes later, you were dead because
that is that episode where I died.
Because all the enemies didn't want to, kill the sorcerer that was just going to town. We wanted to kill the squishy bard in the back, bypass everyone doing damage, and kill the bard in the back that we specifically put in the back to try to save him.
Which, for anyone who's paying attention, yes, my bard is not in the classic stereotype of the horny bard. So yes, that nat 20 was in character.
It's actually kind of wonderful not to have like a stereotypical horny bard. However, we just replaced it with like a horny rogue.
That is happening, yes.
I mean, your party has to have something, apparently, that's like
something's trying to smash.
There are rules, and you must abide by them.
But in our party's case, it's not the bard.
Because we don't want to be broken into by Matt Mercer and have him throw things at us.
Yeah, the wet noodles. No
Yes.
thanks.
You know what, Alex? I'd accept that. That means Matt Mercer would have to like come here to throw. Oh no!
Wait,
hey, want to sit down and chat for a little bit? Yeah,
no,
okay.
Go away, Matt Mercer, because as you're talking, he's just throwing stuff at you.
Oh my gosh.
All right, Jim. We're going to start off with the standard Dungeons & Dragons dice system. Most people here should be familiar with it, but it's going to give us a good baseline for when Peter and I get weird.
Okay, so if you've come to this first podcast called Drunken Dice, and you haven't seen D&D dice before, I will be honestly shocked, and please let us know why. Just why did you do this to yourself?
How did you get here?
How did you find us in the first place?
Are you okay? Are you here against your will? What happened?
If so, there's not much we can do about it, but there you go.
But I'll feel bad for you. So, I mean, the basic set of polyhedral die, a 20-sided die, a 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, all with just numbers on them, not any of the weird symbols that might be on other dice in future systems. Yeah, okay, both.
No, I do have a set of dice that I do not have a 20 in a couple of them, and I don't have a 1 in one because I have my standard crit fuck die.
That's fair, but also I'm talking about Star Wars or Star Trek dice, which are weird.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, very much so.
yeah, Dungeons and Dragons is a D20 system. Your 20 is your best friend. You will roll it for almost everything. Whether it's skill checks to saving throws to attack rolls, it's all the D20. You just that plus whatever modifiers you have, and I mean, there's in Dungeons and Dragons, because I know we already kind of mentioned it here. There's controversy on whether you should count a natural 20, meaning you on the die roll the 20 before any modifiers, whether that is a crit success on all things or just as rules as written says for attack rolls. I enjoy critting and failing epically on everything.
Say, as long as the table agrees on how we do it, I think that's the important thing. Basically, in general, any sort of... Oh, look, a cat. Sorry, audio. That's just my cat just went by the back of my screen and you see a cat wagging the tail.
We were all just cats.
Because you get around of a lot of trouble as long as the entire table agrees on it, because you don't have that one random rules lawyer that's going to try to just ruin everyone's fun because they didn't like it or they were on the wrong end of it.
Yeah.
And they're like, I understand some people's ideas with it, that like some DMs have these like crazy fumble charts that can like really screw you or like anyone in the party over.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I might have you hit someone who is like reasonably in the way
Nathaniel
of the attack. The barbarian who's in between the spellcaster, the archer, and the enemy might get hit by something. You might drop a weapon. I might impose like a disadvantage.
Or if you're standing next to a mud crab, you might get stabbed in the knee.
Yeah. But like some things are like permanently break weapons, like create injury, like crazy injuries, things like that. I'm like, no, I like maybe it affects the next person or your next round of combat, but it should not be something that like is crippling for the rest of combat or for the rest of the day in game or further.
Especially since you have a 1 in 20 shot every single time you do anything.
Yeah.
That's kind of way too much punishment for any perceived crime, especially when it's all randomness.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, I mean the D&D system is pretty basic with already covering the 20. The only all the other ones for the most part is just dictated by like the weapon you're using. Daggers are a D4, short swords are a D6, long swords are a D8. If you use two hands, they're D10. Some spells, and I think a great sword uses a D12. But otherwise, you don't use those die really all that much. The only weird one is the percentile die. So those are two D10s. Generally, in every set, you have a D10 that has like single digits and a D10 that has double digits, and you roll them together. The one with double digits is your tens place. The one with one digit is your ones place. You add them together. Somewhere between 100 and 1 is your outcome, and you go with it from there.
And everyone, to clear everything up, 3 zeros is not a 100. That's a 10. A 9 on the 2 number dice and a 0 on the singles place is a 100. Everyone gets this wrong, because the 00 is a singles place on the 1. 9 plus 0 is 100.
That's up to everyone does it. Listen, just like with the crit fail, it doesn't matter how you do it as long as there's an equal chance to get 100. A
As
1
long
and
as
everything
the
in
table
between.
is consistent.
Except one of the systems allows you to get a 0, which can't exist. That people
Right, well-
conveniently overlook.
Well, 5th edition doesn't. So
Exactly. So you
So,
can't do it.
like as long as everyone agrees at the table how it will be rolled, that's all that matters.
Fair.
You can fight me on that if you disagree. That's all that matters.
Fight, 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 fight.
It'd be weird to fight over that. Like, I disagree.
Also,
You should
very
force yours upon
difficult.
everyone else, even if they all agree with it and it works perfectly fine the same way. Like, let's
Yeah,
go.
also very difficult to
Welcome
fight.
to
with.
Reddit.
Oh,
Welcome to
gosh.
chaotic neutral Dungeons and Dragons.
Welcome to any
2.0.
welcome to any fandom that has an opinion about something.
So all of them.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
all right, Peter. Since basically you
Yeah,
get to use some of the same stuff, I think you're the most similar to it.
Yeah. So the system that I'm talking about is the 2D20 system that was designed by Modiphius Games for their whole line. The one that I use, obviously, is for Star Trek Adventures. And the basic idea is that you use the same 20-sided die, and you get to use 2 of them for each roll. And those rolls are determined by your character sheet of what number you need to roll under. So you add whatever you get together, and you try to roll under a certain number. And then you get successes or failures determined by that. The only difference between how the Star Trek dice work and normal Dungeons and Dragons is that, as I kind of alluded to, it's in the inverse. So a 20 is actually the Dungeons and Dragons equivalent of a nat 1, and a 1 is the equivalent of a nat 20. So in Star Trek, in the 2d20 system, that usually means it's 2 successes. So there isn't exactly in this system a critical success. I, as the game master, will often allow that just because most of my players are used to Dungeons and Dragons, and so I find that entertaining. But that's not generally the rule. The other die that you use is the D6. So there's only 2 types of dice in this. But the dice in the Star Trek D6 system are not just simple 1 through 6. You can use those, but then you need to have a conversion chart, which Modiphius has in the books and on the website. And usually, as a good game master, he posts it everywhere because it's weird. So basically, if you roll a 1, or as if you use a Star Trek die, there's a small starburst, or it equals a 1. Self-explanatory. A 2 is the same. It's also a 2. The difference is the higher numbers. So 3 and 4 are equal to 0. So you get nothing if you roll a 3 or 4. And 5 and 6 are 1 plus an effect. So that's for if you have a weapon, it gets a special effect, like it basically like vicious damage. It ignores personal shields or something like that. So those can stack depending on how many you roll, and it can get pretty nasty. But those are determined, like Dungeons and Dragons, those are basically your damage die. So whatever weapon you have determines how many you get. You roll those and you see what the result is. This is the same with both your characters or your starships. So you roll damage with those and that sort of thing. But pretty much just like Dungeons and Dragons, everything else is done with the D20. You can get more than one. This system also includes what are known as momentum and determination points. So you get a pool during a session, and you can use those to buy another die or lower the difficulty to make it easier to do. Because there's like 5 different difficulties. Well, there's also 0 because sometimes it's just don't nat 1 and you're fine. Which I've had nat 1s happen, so it can be iffy. But
I think we've all had that. Just don't mess it up.
How did you mess it up?
As is typical with me, though, those usually happen behind the DM screen, so you guys don't see them. because, as is my curse, I always roll badly, player or game master. It doesn't matter.
You do have cursed die.
And these are different die. Like, these aren't the ones I use for D&D, and I still roll like crap. Like, someone explain it to me or find me an exorcist. I don't know, but it's just the way it is. So yeah, that's pretty much the D20 system. It's not the system itself. The way the dice work isn't terribly complicated. It's just when you start to try to apply it to the rest of the game system that it can be a little bit of a nightmare. But that's the way it is.
Yeah.
So.
Well, in the Star Wars RPG, specifically the Edge of the Empire core series from, was it Fantasy Flight Games, I believe is the company that makes them. You have Edge of the Empire, Age of Rebellion, and
Forces of Destiny.
Force of Destiny are the three, thank you. They don't use a standard D20 system for it. It's a dice pool system. There are 6 different die that you have that you use. You have your green ability die, your yellow proficiency, which is a D12. Say the ability is a D8. You have the blue boost die, which is a D6. You have your negative dice. You have a difficulty die, which is a purple D8. You have a setback, which is a black D6. And then you have the challenge die, that is a red D12. As well as a force die that just has a bunch of dots. It's a D12, but it's a little over the top.
Yeah, you only use that if you're a Jedi or at the beginning of the game.
Yes. And so how it works is instead of making individual rolls for checks, attacks, anything like that, you make what's called a dice pool. So you see what type it is. Say I'm making an attack against Jim. His Wookiee is coming up and my little smuggler goon wants to hit him in the head with an axe. So you have different skills that correlate to everything. So your skills are going to be based on what sort of how many of the I can't even remember the names of these things already. Of how many ability die that you get to use. And then the difficulty of the check is going to be on how many of the purple you use. And you just keep going. The harder the check, you add more purple. The better you are at something, you get to add more green. However, there's a system in the game where you have ranks in something. And if you are ranked, which is kind of similar to proficiency, but not really, the more ranks you get, the more you can convert the green 8-sided to the yellow 12-sided that have some extra effects and more good things than bad things. The same thing is opposite. If you start to do anything crazy and stupid, you turn the purple ones into the red ones that have the Star Wars version or crit fail on there, called the Despair. And then if you do certain things, you get to add either the boost or the setback. They're called boost and setback because they're added depending on the situation. So say if you're aiming or something, you get to add a boost die to it because it gives you help. You can just throw it in the thing and you have to roll them all together. Or say if you're doing something dumb or you have an ill effect on you, that's when you throw a black setback on it. So how it goes is you don't really change the difficulty of it. You just make the pool, throw it, and then you see the symbols that counteract each other. Like there's certain successes that are little explosions or failures that look like little triangles. It's like playing a game of cornhole, the things just cancel out. And after you cancel out all the different effects, you see what you got. Sometimes you get just nothing happens. Sometimes you have a success, sometimes you have advantage, sometimes you have disadvantage, and sometimes you just fail. And it gives you a lot of leeway on how it goes, because normal D20 systems, you either pass or you fail. Star Wars mainly operates in a gray area. It's not really just pure success, because you can succeed and have a lot of bad things happen while you succeeded, or you can fail and still kind of get away all right. So it really puts a lot on the game master to kind of interpret how things go, but it also gives players a lot of freedom to do cool stuff. This game is a more heavily narrative-based game anyway, so it gives players a lot of agency to do a lot of fun things with it.
Yeah.
The other two things that are kind of put together is, like I said, the force die. That you only kind of use this when you are a force user, or for me, if I have a force wielder that they're fighting, and that's going to determine if you can use force powers or not, or how much you can use for force powers. And the last thing is called destiny tokens. Very similar to the momentum that Peter talked about with Star Trek. But at the start of every game, everyone rolls the force token, and if you get light side, you get one light side token. If you get dark side, you get one dark side. There's one token per player plus GM in the game. And anytime during the game, players or the GM can flip one either side. If a GM uses it, it goes from dark side to light side. If a player uses it, it goes from light side to dark side. And they can use it to positively influence whatever they're doing. So say Jim's Wookiee is backed up against a wall and he doesn't know what to do, he can flip a destiny token to give him an extra die to try to escape or to try to fight his way out. Or if for some reason the players are getting lucky on their rolls and they might have cornered a big bad, I can flip one over and give him a convenient getaway platform that happens just at the last second.
Yeah.
Or if I got someone being extra dumb, I can make sure that he can't try to jump the campaign. Matt, trying to fight the big bad right in the beginning.
I kind of hope he listens to this.
Oh boy.
I don't think he will. But yeah.
But it's one of those, it can help, and it's to help make it feel like the Force is a part of the world. That players, even if they're not Force sensitive, the Force still goes through all living things, and it has an impact on what everyone's doing. And it gives both players and GM an out if they ever feel to be cornered. So it doesn't have to just end poorly. Especially if you had the very critical piloting check to get away from a Star Destroyer and you fail it, flip that sucker and try again. Let's go.
When you fail it 3 times in a row with 3 different characters, yeah.
Yes.
Boy, we sucked that day.
I'm just sitting there like, I'm trying not to kill you. I don't want to kill you.
Yeah.
You're making it hard for me not to kill you.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go into
quick random
Yes.
thing. Star Trek also does have something similar to the flipping. So, and I just forgot to mention it, even though it's like sitting right on the table. They also have what are known as threat tokens, and those are used by the game master, and you get 2 per player at the beginning of the session. I have not used them on you guys recently because they can get pretty bad pretty fast with the number of you.
Oh yeah, with how big that game is, you're just like flip them all. 4 cube dead. Haha.
Yeah, pretty much. So it basically functions the same way, where I can insert a complication in there, like, oh well, you thought that you got through that system. Yeah, threat. No, you didn't. Or oh look, there's this guy needs I need him to attack more powerfully. Toss a threat, use a more powerful weapon. It works like that. There are built-in mechanics of how to use that with the NPCs, of expend 2 threat to use a bigger, like a phaser grenade.
So you haven't used that recently, so what happened last time just happened naturally?
Which one?
You know exactly which one.
Yeah, that wasn't threat, no.
Oh
that,
god.
That was built
Oh god, even worse.
Yeah, that was built into the system. Well, built into what I wrote, so yeah.
To give some context to people who aren't in the game, which is most people, surprisingly, without many people in there, I do get lost with how many are a part of the crew.
I know. There's an actual crew as part of the game.
Got hundreds of people. It's an entire crew. It's hell on Peter.
We actually killed one when one died.
Yeah.
Like,
everyone was sad. Mostly, except for the people who are like, "Oh, it's not a big deal," and then proceed to make it a big deal.
Yeah, so we have a person in the crew, maybe the head of the crew, captain, who called a bluff. It was not a bluff. It was real.
Yeah.
All of that was just natural.
Yeah, I did not expend any threat on that at all. He just failed that.
So you ever watched a movie that had like a poker game or something midway through and someone goes all in and you know it's not going to go well because you know there's still an hour and a half left in the movie. Yeah, it was kind of like that.
Yeah, it's one of those. It was one of those things where it's like, as a game master, I'm sure this has happened for most of the dungeon masters and game masters out there. But this moment is seared into my brain. Of like, I'm sitting there going like, okay, Captain, the general, he like looks at you and like, are you sure you want to do this? And the captain goes, well, of course, you know, I'm gonna call his bluff. And I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, why are you making me do this? And so then I have the general turn to the admiral and drop his bomb. And then like the whole game just went silent for a split second. And it was just like, you could...
Which was easy for me because I was unconscious at this point.
Well, your character was unconscious, yes. But like on the Discord, everyone just kind of went, oh no. And it's just like...
I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so
there's going to be consequences.
Oh no.
And so now the game master is working on consequences, which I shall not expose right now. But
No.
I mean, if the person decides to listen to this while he is driving and can pick out who he is in this, yeah. Shit's about to happen.
As I had certain people say, stuff happens.
Rule number one, turn your phone on silent, Peter.
Peter!
Come on!
In the middle of the podcast, you have your phone on loud.
Well, it usually never goes off. People don't text me.
Oh, and someone walked in the room, too.
Oh, for sure that's what just happened.
He's trying to play it off, but we're not going to let him. Everyone here, Shane Peter with us.
I didn't mute my mic. Well, now he's talking.
Oh, yeah, look, he's leaning back, trying to be natural about it.
Oh,
I just muted my mic. Hey, I can edit that out.
Don't. No, come on, that's no fun.
I'm going to keep remembering, if there's a weird cut, Peter did it to save face. Don't let him do it.
I was going to say, we'll just bring this up randomly throughout, so you'd have to either make a million little cuts, or
Peter, release the Peter cut. Don't hide it from people.
Oh, God.
Or since I'm the editor, it totally makes sense.
Or the time with things that I introduce a character to, everything's kind of gotten weird, so I'm trying to keep certain somebody from doing something incredibly stupid.
For the record, two separate people. We don't just have one person in our group of friends who makes terrible decisions. We have a few.
But this person has been mentioned before in this very podcast.
Yeah.
But he was doing something so obscenely dumb, I had to create a character to try to save him from himself. Because I didn't want him to do this.
Which he didn't listen to. The rest of the party, sees this obvious DM, go this way. And
it wasn't even really a railroad. It was more of a sign of sheer cliff, danger. Not good. Don't do it.
It was basically I know I've seen the sign. It's in no.
I don't think so.
No. I don't think so. Maybe it was.
No, yeah, I think you were. Yeah, no, because this was your first when you and Jim were Jedi.
Me and you were Jedi.
And this was the Lasat on
on I was
Botha Nui.
thinking D&D. I wasn't thinking Star Wars.
Okay. Yeah. No, I've literally seen the sign all over the internet. It gets posted and goes around I think once every few months. Where it's just a sign that has the Grim Reaper that's don't go beyond this point. You're probably gonna die. And we don't want you to die. It was that. It was just if you go that way, you're going to die. Nah, I gotta go that way.
Yeah, especially since this whole thing was like a murder mystery type espionage thing. Since we were on Botha Nui, the thing is spies anyway. It was kind of fun to do it there, and they were discovering certain weird things happening. And then one person had an idea that was "Oh, that's what you're trying to do? Oh God, what do I do to not ruin this whole thing for everyone?" And I put that inconspicuous character in an alley going, "Oh, I heard you're kind of doing something like that." Clearly, an introduction to a character who he just clears to ignore, thinks he's doing something honor bound, but it makes no sense, and just essentially turns himself in when he did nothing. I was like, "What?
Oh yeah.
Oh. how did you think that was like? All right, well, you're in jail now. I'm going to cut back to everyone else.
Now
You're going to be in jail for a while. They have stuff to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not letting you escape. You did this to yourself, and I warned you, so you're going to sit in jail for a while.
Yes.
I mean, so I think every DM, GM, whatever you're called for your game, has had those moments where you're just like Peter, are you sure you want to do this? Like if your dungeon master or game master is asking you if you're sure you want to do something, it probably means they don't want you doing it because it's stupid.
Whenever
Or,
I
like,
hear that, it's like, nope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like if it's that stupid that we have to like, are you really sure? Like that's our hint.
Yeah. If you anyone who's new to the hobby and gaming anywhere, if the person who's running the game gives you an "Are you sure?" the answer should always be no. That is a universal sign.
If they're smirking at you, like they look like this could be funny, depends on your dungeon master. It could be okay, but usually it's a bad idea.
The smirk isn't usually an "Are you sure?" It's a what?
I'm sorry. Can you say that again?
Yeah, something like
the giveaway for the "Are you sure?" is like, are you sure?
Yeah.
And there's the what'd you just say? Because like in my ears, I heard something that sounds crazy. I want to make sure you said something that was crazy. Yep. Okay. Too late. We're going through with this. Like,
and there we go.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah. And then bad stuff happens.
But the best is always the DM going, ugh.
That's happened way too many times.
I don't know how to call this. I think Jim can tell the best story about one of those happening.
Oh God, yeah. Alex over here has to disintegrate on a human heart. It wasn't still in the person.
I twinned it. I was a sorcerer, and I twin disintegrate.
You twin disintegrate. One on like the big bad, I believe.
It was the ritualistic heart. Okay, context. We had a necromancer who was trying to complete a ritual to become a lich.
Yep.
We've been doing everything pretty well, but we get to the point where we can't delay it any longer. They've kind of almost completed it. So I twin disintegrate because I kept enough sorcery points and that spell slot open. I cast it on the heart itself and the lich's phylactery. Or the thing that would become a phylactery.
Yeah.
To try to, even if I fail at one, if I hit the other, it should work. Something will be off on the ritual, and it won't be able to complete.
Yeah.
Which was my plan.
And I definitely had to set... I called that game for the night, so I could spend the next week like, okay, well, the heart itself isn't magical, but it's like this thing being used in this act of magic. At what point does it become magical? Can he use it at this point?
Yeah, I was involved in that philosophical discussion too.
Yeah.
I think I was too. I think you reached out to like, I don't know.
Well, I know I talked to you because I was like, okay, you're the one casting it. Like, I wanted you to know what my thought process was so that when the ruling finally came, you knew like, fair. One, I put thought into it, and it wasn't just like a screw it. I don't want you to do this, or like I hate you. This works, to spite you. But it was actually like, okay, here's what I'm thinking, just so you know. Like, but it really came down to like me and Peter looking up works of philosophy and definitions and shit like that. That I was like, okay, I know how I'm gonna rule it. Which I did allow him to do it and stop the ritual, and then the lich escaped. Oh no!
Yeah,
that won't come back to bite us ever.
But, oh no! I used all my high level things, and I couldn't do anything to stop the lich. God damn it! But that just goes. Anyone out there, if you can do something that's creative and not just I want to reduce bad guy numbers of life, you can generally get some pretty fun stuff going. Think outside the box. That's the fun about these tabletop games. The less sense it makes, the more likely it actually might work. Because it just makes no sense.
I mean, it has to be somewhat based in reason on some level.
Yeah, but sometimes you just do something stupid with rolling a 20 and boom.
Yeah.
It's just stupid enough to work. Or
So
you can go skipping through a forest, singing and strumming your mandolin as well when we're trying to sneak up to bandits.
Yeah.
Hey, Peter.
Going back to the dice systems and what we're actually supposed to be here, give me some pros and cons of each one of what you think about each system are, or let's all do it for all of our experience playing all three of these. On just what do you think is good, what is bad?
So I figure we should just go in the same order we did the explanations in.
Yeah.
So start with D&D. I think the advantage to at least 5th editions everything is like dice rolls are simplified. Like if you have advantage, you roll the d20 twice, take the higher number. Disadvantage, you roll it twice, take the lower number. Otherwise, you add a simple modifier, it's done and over with, as opposed to some of the math that you get into with Pathfinder, 4th edition, 3.5, and all that stuff.
Okay, I know we said 4th edition. Please don't get upset. It's done. It's over. It's over. Everyone calm down. Everyone calm down.
I think they'll be okay because I was slightly crapping on it.
Okay. But that's like a powder keg we don't need to get into.
You know what? Powder kegs sometimes make videos and channels go viral, so bring it on, bitches.
Like Mogaton.
Like, or Megaton in Fallout, which maybe,
Okay. That we need to tell the story of Mogaton, not now, but an actual video about Mogaton.
Later time. But yeah.
Yeah, that'll come out. Yeah.
What's the evilest thing you ever did, not knowing it was the evilest thing you ever done?
And the rest of the party was like, wait, what?
And did nothing to stop me.
I was completely somewhere else. But
True. Anyway, so do you guys want to say what you think about D&D, or do you...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like it because I like the simplicity of it. I like how it all makes sense. You have numbers. It's this, it's that. There's no gray area in a good way. So there's no this is what happened, and there's no debating about it. I set a difficulty. You have this to beat it. You roll, you add your character stuff, and it's good or bad. Which really simplifies the game, especially with how the system is set up. That's what it is for. I'd say a downside to it is you do get to lack some of that nuance that can happen in real life. That it does make it a bit more gamey with the standard D20 system. But you're playing a game, so it makes more sense. You know you're going into it, so the downside isn't really there as much because you know what you're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
And my problems with it go on to more how weapons are dealt and how kind of lack of variety and everything there are, rather than the dice system themselves.
Yeah.
It's not the dice's fault that everything is either a D6 or a D8.
Sure.
Yeah.
Peter,
I think
about your feelings.
Well, for me, since I'm the newest to all of these systems out of all of us, for me, sometimes with this dice system, some of the math, which I know there's a lot less in this one than others, is sometimes unclear. But that's because I suck at math.
Addition is hard for him.
Yep.
Well, mostly just remembering, does the proficiency bonus apply to this or that? And I know you have tick marks and stuff, but sometimes I just forget that.
Peter, you're blessed. Add your D4. What are you doing?
Exactly. But in my defense, I started using Roll20, and I'm trying to do it off of paper and learn how to use it correctly. So there's that. So sometimes the math is a little annoying for me, but that's just me. That's not a knock against the system.
The only math I'm good at is D&D, man. If you put me in a real world situation, I'm I can't do this math. In D&D, you roll 5 D6s, and I'm oh, that's 21. How? I don't know. It's D&D.
One thing that I do appreciate about this system is the versatility of it.
That is true.
It does have a lot of hey, here's all these different subsets to your scores, and here's how we modify them and how they get applied with proficiencies.
Thank you, Jim, for that. Everyone, let's stop and Jim making a very extra effort to pour himself another drink.
I was trying to do it quietly too. It did not work.
You pulled that cork.
That was being quiet.
Like I pulled it away. And this is like a fairly new bottle, so the cork's still pretty tight on it.
Because it looked like you were trying to get close to the mic when you
No,
did it.
I pulled it away from the mic. Like the bottle's over here. I had it like up to my chest, trying to like do it slowly.
Because you just look like a kid with their hand caught in a cookie jar. Like,
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
my bad.
But
I'm not having more alcohol. I swear.
Say,
yeah, but for me, the versatility is definitely helpful, especially when compared to some other things, which I'm sure we'll get into later. But like, it's easier to like, this one applies to this situation, and so this is what I'm gonna do. And then there can always be a little bit of debate of like, no, I think that like sleight of hand would be involved here instead of deception or something like that.
But the arguing is like the skill set and how the game is set up rather than the actual like dice system and how the nuts and bolts and how it works. But I'm gonna go next with Star Wars because I'm gonna go out on a limb and say our favorite is probably the D&D D20 system, Star Wars, and then Star Trek in the favorites and how they go. What I like about the Star Wars one is just the versatility that you can get with every roll. Because you're making a dice pool, there is technically never a check that is guaranteed to fail, which can be a pain in the ass sometime as the game master. However, how the system is set up, that you have essentially control over what happens no matter what. Even when they're attacking, they read things off to you, and you can kind of control things with like wounds and soak and other just parts of the game mechanics. But there's always a chance for them to succeed and a chance to fail. A lot more than like there's some talents, like say a bard's jack of all trades, where they can add a lot of stuff, or a rogue's just what is it? The reliable talent that they essentially, no matter what, I'm good at it. Screw you. And I like how it's simple that you just make a pool, you roll, and that's what it is. You don't have to add anything else. You do all your adding when you put all the dice together, and then you just cancel stuff out. And you're like, all right, I got 3 successes. There we go. The hard part is when you start getting into the advantages and disadvantages and everything you can do with it. There's a lot to remember. It's generally better to have it up so you can know what you can do with those things. Or if you just ask me and say, could I do that? Maybe yes or no. But I like it that you could fail at something, but if you have enough advantage, you can still get a positive outcome of it. Unlike where, say in D&D, if you fail something, you generally are in trouble. But in this one, say I roll 1 failure, but still 4 advantage, I can fail my sneak across an open thing, but I had enough advantage that I still wasn't caught yet. I just hadn't made it across, so I actually can get another chance at it. Or just there's different things that you can do. Or I succeed at it, but I actually had more of a empirical cost when I did it, so something got hurt or can't be used for a little bit, even though I succeeded. And it really gets to keep the narrative flowing with it and make it seem more realistic, because everything's not just black and white. That is, I'm good or I'm bad. Some things can happen while you're doing it, and I think that's a really cool thing to the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I actually really like the Star Wars like dice pool thing because like you can do little things to make things better either for you or for other people, especially with those like advantages and threats. You're gonna be like, well, I know I didn't hit this person in combat, but I have an advantage, so I can use that to add a blue die to my next friend's like turn.
Yeah.
Which a blue die has, I mean, it has no like crit success, but it has no failure thing, so it can only be good or neutral. And so like you have those little options to be like, oh, I didn't do this, or I did this really well, and now I'm be able to, you know, help out my friends, or instead of just, oh, yep, I hit with my weapon, like for my Wookiee, my gaffy stick, great. If there's like a quality on the weapon, I can use my advantage to activate that quality and be vicious about it, or whatever the quality may be. I know I have vicious, but you have
You get to ignore armor or soak with vicious.
yeah. And so like you have those little things to even when you're making like a weapon attack, unlike in D&D, where like I guess the best thing like a crit, so you roll double the damage die. Like okay, that's great, but that still could be nothing more. That could be nothing compared to their enemy's resistances or just massive HP pool or whatever. Like this is actually like I get to do something else. I can help other people. I can make them disadvantaged. I can affect the game for other people, like to help the party out instead of just being like I hit really good.
And I think it'd be fun to talk about crits in different systems, because the D100 crit system in Star Wars, actually no, I think it's D200. It's up to 200, I think it is, because things scale as you crit and do things.
So you only roll a D1. And I think it's 150 if I remember correctly. It goes up to 150 because like the more crits you get on someone, they add 10 for
each successive crit that someone sustains, you add 10 to whatever you just rolled on that, and it just keeps stacking. And so it can get pretty bad.
Yeah.
To, this guy's kind of staggered. To, he loses a limb. It's gone. Yeah, 2 at the end, you just die. So you can even have a massive health pool. But if you get critted enough times, you can still have health, but you die because you've been critted too many times.
Yeah, you've been critted like 5 times and the person rolls 100, you're gonna die.
Yeah, because it's yeah. And even the ones before that are really, really bad.
Oh yeah, no, they're all terrible. Like you do not want to be critted.
No,
but that's what I like about the Star Wars one, and with the threats and advantage, honestly, has inspired how I do crit successes and crit fails outside of the pure just double your damage die in Dungeons and Dragons. So like, oh, you rolled a nat 1. Okay, well maybe it's just like you have you rolled like 2 advantage in Star Wars where you add a black die to your, okay, so the next person's disadvantaged because of whatever you did, or they get advantage, or this happened, or that has been an inspiration to my Dungeons and Dragons DMing since we started playing.
Yeah, or like a status effect gets put on them or something like that, which I think it's good to use things from multiple systems, because I like to go more as rules and as intended rather than rules as written sometimes. Yeah. And especially working in the rule of cool and how just to make things more dynamic and fun while you do it. Because double the damage is fun, but you then still have the option of rolling all ones on your double damage, and it still just feels very just meh. But doing something where you crit them and now say the creature's blinded for a few turns, like that's pretty cool that you did something that can have effects for doing something cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the thing that I like about the Star Wars system is, as we've been alluding to, is the fluidity of it. So like it just keeps on moving forward. So like you can fail forward, or you can which is always funny, where it's like, oh, you completely just screwed that up. Like you threw a thermal detonator, it did not go off, but it did bounce towards your friend, so he can rethrow it. Like, stuff like that. So I like that it helps keep the narrative moving, and it's based more on the dice rather than which we'll get to later. But with Star Trek, it's more on the game master to do that. But yeah, that's probably the thing that I really like about that, and it's just kind of fun to use the different colored dice to do all the different things, because sometimes it's like, I'm kind of tired of numbers. I just want to look at, does this cancel this? Yes. Great.
Yeah, you don't have to do a lot of math on that. Mainly it's doing math on my end, going, all right, what type of weapon was that? You tell me, so you don't have to think about it. I'll do it, and I'll subtract the soak or whatever, everything that else goes on. As long as I know it's happening, it's not bad.
Yeah, so I very much, I like the fluidity of that one. That's kind of the big thing for me on that one. So,
I say overall, I think it's a good system, and I like just how different it is. They wanted to be different, and it wasn't just different for the sake of being it. They actually made it work, which that's good job, Fantasy Flight Games, for doing that. Because that's a lot harder than people think.
Yeah.
Yeah. After watching a few people try, because they think they're smart enough to, it most of the time doesn't work. And even in some like published games, they're like, this is kind of a janky system.
I kind of get what you're going for, but I don't think it works.
Speaking of which.
Speaking of.
Yeah. Speaking of.
That's what we call a segue.
Yeah, so the
transition.
So I'll start because this was the system that I introduced. But the 2D20 system for Star Trek. One of the good things about it is it does allow, similar to Star Wars, the fail forward. There's a lot of stuff in the book of like, you should probably do this. You guys haven't read the Game Master parts, but there's a lot of that in there, of failing forward and that sort of thing. But a lot of it is on, and this is one thing that I don't like, is a lot of it is on the Game Master to come up with how that works. It's not like, oh, you rolled an advantage. It's like, oh no, you failed, but you still want narratively to move forward, so you create a way to do it. So it kind of lends itself to railroading because of how it's set up. So that is kind of a downside of it. In a not just the dice bit, the other downside is the book is written in an in-universe viewpoint. So it's a little hard to figure out how the system works. So
luckily, we have someone who's currently wearing a Starfleet uniform, deciphering all this for us and pushing the narrative forward.
Right.
Which helps.
Because we're dum-dums.
I can just get up with my shenanigans and keep going.
Yeah, the bonus for our particular game is I am steeped in the lore. And so I can just be like, this part of the mechanics doesn't make sense, but this is how this works, so this is what's going to happen.
I couldn't tell you're steeped in the lore. I see phasers on your wall behind you.
And tricorders, and yeah.
Those are tricorders?
There's a tricorder right behind my head. That black box with a silver bar. That is a classic tricorder.
I was looking to the left of the classic tricorder.
Oh yeah, those are phasers.
Yeah,
that's funny. If you have that, let's see. In my background, you see half of an HK thing. You have a Star Wars map that's framed. A lot of my Star Wars books.
And a Starfleet Officers Commission.
I do have that. Thank you, Peter. Which I'm waiting to get framed.
And behind me, you have all my notes from all the sessions I've led as a DM. Nothing.
And I have my Sabak deck is up there too.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that with the Star Trek one, that's kind of the downside, is the way that the book is written. Because spoiler, I still haven't quite figured out how starship combat works. Because
you think that would be something that they have a section about it.
Something that would be easy to figure out, or they would have like, oh, here's how this works. Here's it is for dummies. Trust me, I've looked. I've tried to watch other videos of other game masters running systems, and the starship combat is just something that does not get explained very well. So the way that I run it is very simplistic. Don't tell anyone else that. Too late. I already said it on the podcast. But
it's the first one. No one's gonna listen to this one anyway.
I mean, all 4 people that will hear this one.
No one will care.
So hey, Dom, what's up?
Yeah.
But yeah, the some of the systems don't really work, and because they're just not explained well, and the way that you pick roles is very limited. It doesn't have the same sort of versatility as Dungeons and Dragons with the or Star Wars, where it's like, hey, this is an athletics check, or hey, this is this other thing. You always have to do a combination of 12 things of 2 different out of the 12 categories.
That's
and
all
sometimes
up to the GM's
it's like
discretion.
And a lot of it is just like the game master going like, okay, you're doing this. This has got to be these 2 things because I can't figure out how you would apply this. So a lot of it is supposed to be the player and the game master going, would it make sense for me to do this? Yes or no. But so sometimes that's a little aggravating.
Or especially when you have the guy who always is like, so this is security and control, right? security and control, right? Because
These are my two good things,
And
right?
the game master's like, no, this is command and control because you're trying to tell someone what to do, or it's command and daring because you're trying to like bullshit someone.
Or
This
mine
is
is generally
insight and medical.
computers and daring or engineering and daring because I'm always trying to get up to some bullshit.
Right. So yeah.
Never know.
Like,
I hack Starfleet on a regular basis. I probably
yes.
shouldn't be able to do that, but
It's an
I do.
issue.
Yeah, he hacked a starbase, which can happen. Not a good idea, but it can happen. And then he tried to hack Starfleet intelligence, and that didn't go so well.
I ended up in medical bay.
Yeah. But again, a lot of it, because this system is heavily narrative based, it's very, very helpful to have a GM who actually knows the universe, because
Yes. Oh,
you have to like know how this stuff works, because there's not rules for a lot of it. So that's like it's good if you have a good GM, and I'm not saying I'm the best, but it's good if you have a good one. But if you don't have a game master who's experienced with the universe, or has like, or at least has memory alpha up and can look for that sort of crap.
but Peter,
it's
this
gonna be
game
an
would
interesting
fall
story.
apart if you weren't the GM for it.
Oh,
Just because how much you care about Star Trek, it just wouldn't be the same or as fun if we had someone who wasn't that into it.
Yeah,
I mean,
probably.
realistically, I don't know another game that can 2-year hiatus and then just start back up and have almost everyone like, oh, yeah, let's just keep going.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, it's fine. Nothing. It's like we didn't have any hiccups on it. It just kind of went.
Yeah, oddly, we just kind of picked right back up. All it was like, hey, Peter, what the heck were we doing? Here's what you're doing. Okay.
And we went with it.
Hey, weren't you two not expecting a child last time we were playing this, and now he's like turning 2? Weird.
I know. Right? It's,
Yeah.
if anyone's ever played Adventures League D&D, it would kind of work like that. Oh, and you're here. Go.
Pretty much.
And that's how it went.
Yeah, so what do you guys two think about this system?
It's one of those, I kind of like what they were going for, being kind of different. Not just you have 6 skills, everything is based off of that. Everything is kind of a combination of the two, and you have different things going on.
Yeah.
But like I said, if you weren't there, I wouldn't know how to play. It's that complicated that all I know is I roll 2 d20s and hope I'm lower.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like, I tell you fun stuff, we have fun stories, but actual, like, mechanically with the game, it's very secondary to me. It's like, all right, what do I have to do to kind of keep this fun story we're on going?
Yeah.
Or what do I have to do to have this dumb idea I have work? I want to mess with this admiral in this meeting that I'm technically not invited to, but I send things to them anyway.
Let's find out what he's having for lunch.
I did do that. I wasn't invited to a command meeting. I wonder why. So I hacked the Starfleet database and sending information to our first officer to mess with him.
It was a pretty epic moment. Like, not
And-
epic in the oh my goodness, but hilarious.
So naturally, I had to use that information at the end of the meeting. Like, oh, by the way, there's a good Chinese food place here. I would love some Chinese food.
And wherever we go, it's very funny because our ship magically gets up higher on the priority list than it should be.
Yeah. That is also one in my head that's just kind of seared into my memory of just a hilarious moment of, oh, and at the end of the meeting, the captain was like, oh, and can we check our repair schedule? And the admiral's like, oh, yeah, your ship is next on the docket. I don't know how that happened. Anyway.
We're very important people with very important missions, as you know.
My entire goal in that game is I don't have to do this anymore. People just see us and put us high on the priority list because they know it's going to happen eventually.
Yeah. You're not at that point yet, but
I know, especially since somebody is making my life harder when it comes to trying to do this stuff.
We have some pent-up anger. We need this next session to start getting
yeah, well.
At least internally. Like, amongst the crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so Star Trek's interesting. Really, like, yeah, I don't even think I would play in this game or like in a game of this without knowing the GM was either you or someone like you who like actually cared about Star Trek.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, I wouldn't say me and Alex are like novice Trekkies. Like we know Star Trek to a point.
If you ask me anything outside the Next Generation, I probably don't know.
Okay, so he's more of a novice Trekkie than I am.
Yes.
I was like raised on Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine.
Okay, that's fair. I also know Voyager. I know Next Generation and Voyager, but that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then I've gone
watched
back and filled in the gaps. But like,
You don't like Voyager?
I didn't
You
say
made a
that.
you made a weird face.
I was making a face of like, yeah, I've watched everything multiple times.
yeah. So like I wouldn't consider myself like a new novice to Star Trek, but like with the depth of knowledge that it seems you need for like I wouldn't run this game, and if someone didn't have that kind of like, I would basically just be like, well, why don't we just play another system, because like we're basically going to not play Star Trek if we do this with someone else.
I think this entire system would be better if the handbook made sense.
Yeah.
I like the handbook being said kind of in universe, but I think at the end of the day, if you're going to have a handbook, it needs to be clear and concise.
Yeah. It's very pretty. Like,
you know, I like what they were going for,
very pretty,
but it needed. You can still keep that aesthetic, but it has to be. That's the cool thing about the player's handbook for Dungeons and Dragons, 5th edition at least, that you know exactly what to do, where to go, and how to do it. It makes a lot of sense. Like, and even Star Wars, since we're just pulling out books now.
Well, you mentioned it, and it was literally
because even with Star Wars, there's some parts that are really good to know, but they're generally not close to each other, and you have to flip back and forth for different things. That you're like, I need this, but I need this. What's this? It's a lot easier with a DM screen because it kind of does that. But there's even some things that I still need a book to be like, what am I doing with this? And like, D&D is perfect for making things more organized and easy to find and read. Star Wars, I think, is in that middle ground, and Star Trek it needs an out-of-universe thing for it.
Yeah. It needs a dummies guide.
Yeah, basically, like, if they put out, like, a Star Trek, or like Star Trek Adventures or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Like, Star Trek Adventures Compendium, which is, like, great. Like, this isn't character creation. Here is how you do this, how you do this, how you do like, here's just pure mechanics of, like, here's how you do the stuff, and then here's the book that you need to, like, fill in, like, that's how you do this. Here's all the other information that you need to run this game.
Yeah.
And it would be so much better that even if, like, that handbook had, like, all the cliff notes were, like, in-universe things, like how in Xanathar's Guide to Everything, all the cliff notes are literally Xanathar making comments about stuff. Like, if I were going to be this, I'd be a mastermind because no one is as good as me. Stuff like that. That would be really cool. Or I think Tasha's has that as well. It's Tasha commenting on the stuff that you're reading. But that would be much better because at least you can get through times you just need info. I don't need this spin on what Starfleet Command said. I just need to know how the hell does this work. And you don't get that. And it's frustrating.
Like for one of the mechanics that took forever for me to implement, which I did implement in, I think, 2 sessions ago, but is the milestone and the reputation system.
The
reputation system is going to be a lot more involved later, but spoilers. But
spoiler, I think we're already doing pretty poor on that.
Yeah, but like there, like I remember, like after session 1, like a couple people were like, "Hey, what about this milestone thing where we like pick someone and they do like?"
It was me and Jim. We're a couple people.
Where you get like and a captain. We're like, "Hey, we need like, do we get like an advantage for next time or something?" And I was like, "Okay, well, let me figure this out." And so eventually I was able to implement that where you got to save a momentum for later, or you got to like move an ability score around, because you can't like upgrade stuff. There's not like a whole lot of forward progression with the characters, which is another thing that's a little weird.
I think that'd be another good thing to
It
talk
makes
about
sense
later on,
in
too.
universe,
Yeah.
but that's something we can talk about later. Like, it works the way that again, how this book is set up. With the flavor text, it all makes sense, but just mechanics-wise, there's not a lot of progression, and sometimes that's a little frustrating. But that was something that I finally was able to implement because it took a while to figure out how the heck that thing worked. So that's like the one. I mean, I know we're saying a lot of downsides to it, but it is a fun game
It's
if
fun.
you have someone who runs it.
If your group is good, like any game, if the group is good, it's going to be good. But I think, especially with like D&D, you can have not the best group and still have a fun experience depending on how the DM is running the game.
Yeah.
Like, because if you're doing something that's very tactical in that, you could have a group that's not big into roleplay and still have fun because you're playing the game as it's supposed to be played.
Right.
Star Trek won't work that way. If you're not having a fun people who want to role play and kind of get into their characters, take advantage of semantics being called upon, and things like that.
Pouncing on the GM when he mispronounces something, or was thinking of the source material and called you by the wrong rank.
Stuff like that. Or
for the record, I don't think either of us have pounced on you for that. We may make a joke about something like that, but sometimes gets overdone.
There's there's going to be a certain omnipotent being that may make reference to this occurrence.
Well, Capitan.
Oh god.
That's the one thing that I do enjoy about Star Trek is the GM has an excuse to be someone in the universe aside from just characters because Q exists.
Okay, I just love that all official announcements from the GM to the players out of game, like away from the table, away from the session, it's all Q like emailing us and messaging us and stuff.
That is really funny. I do like that.
That is an affectation that I've taken on as the game master. Something that if you do run this game, you probably should do because it is hilarious.
And it adds something to it. Like, it very much does, and I like it a lot.
Especially if, like, well, this is just my own opinion, but like if you flavor it the way that, like, if it gets to the point where you can hear John Delancey saying it in your head, then you've done it right, and it definitely makes it more hilarious.
And we have an LCAR system in our Discord thing for stuff too, which actually is kind of cool. Like, we don't set up a game time, but like, oh, we can all meet at this. We get an official computer records that we're all going to be here at this time, and it's. I want to just give a shout out to Peter with how much time and effort he puts into that, and I don't know if enough people give him the credit he deserves because it really makes a difference, and it's awesome.
It is.
Thanks.
Now you have to take a compliment in front of everyone.
I know. I just like, having my work be in the background and be like, I enjoy this. But
what an introvert.
Yeah.
So any other closing thoughts that anyone has before we wrap up with our drinks and everything else?
I mean, I think we've gone over it a couple times. It gets brought if everyone at the table is on the same page and having fun, that's all that matters about these damn games. Like the thing with Star Trek, Star Wars, D&D, Pathfinder, Grups, Mutants and Masterminds, fucking every
Call of Cthulhu. Anything.
Call of Cthulhu. I had to cut it off somewhere, and I already put in a few weird ones. So, but I don't know, every system is gonna have benefits and downsides and whatnot. Like, it's just about like having a group you enjoy playing with and just being all on the same page of like what we're doing, how things work, and just move forward.
Say more important, in my opinion, than all the mechanical mumbo jumbo that all these game system has. If everyone at the table knows the type of experience they want, and that's what you should go for. The problems go off if you have certain players who want one thing and other players want another, and then the GM is on another page. That's when games fall apart, and it's terrible. Just so talk to each other, get on the same page, and have fun. That's the point of all this, right? We're supposed to be having fun.
Yeah, and I
We're
mean,
not supposed to be having panic attacks. Oh,
I mean, I would have to agree with that. The most important thing is to have fun. Like, if you have to fudge rolls to, continue it to be fun, help it stay fun. Do it.
That's a whole nother thing.
That's a whole different thing. I know.
We'll talk
fudging
about
and
that
not
in future
fudging.
weeks.
Yes, that's an
that's kind
entire
of the main
podcast.
thing is the like it's the focus on this is a game and it's supposed to be fun. Like, it can be difficult, it can be tough, or epically terrible sometimes when someone keeps rolling nat ones.
Peter.
Yeah, I know. That happens to me all the time. But as long as like everyone's having fun and laughing about it, or at least like really involved. Like, I know that when my character has gone down, we've just bust out laughing multiple times because it happens all the time. So, but like, as long as you're enjoying it, even if the rolls are terrible, like, it doesn't matter. So, yeah.
Well, before we head out, how is everyone's drink? Mine is done. I like Woodford. It's a good kind of do anything you want it to do, it can do, and you can never go wrong with it, in my opinion.
Well, seeing as I'm on number 2, I think I'm enjoying it.
Nah.
The double oak is delicious. Like, I mean, never mix it. Like,
yeah, please don't mix it.
Don't to mix double oak with anything. Like, ice, you can have it on the rocks. That's fine. But like, if you're doing like mint juleps or old fashions or whatever, I don't remember. I know an old fashioned.
Yeah.
So like, if you're doing that, like, don't use
mint julep. Has to be bourbon.
Yeah,
to be a mint julep.
Yeah.
I'd say the only time if you ever double oak to be the fanciest I'd ever allow for a mint julep, as long as it's Derby Day. If you're doing this any other day other than Derby Day, I'm gonna look at you weird.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And well, the one that I had, the Hofbrau Hefeweizen, it's just a classic wheat beer from Germany. Pretty mellow. I am one of those sticklers for non-hoppy beer, so this kind of fits the bill.
Agreed. I'm with you on that one.
We're all in agreement with non-hoppy beers.
So
go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's pretty great. It can be sometimes a little hard to find, but this is one of my go-tos. Is the Hofbrau and the Franziskaner are kind of my go-to beers.
Do you refrigerate
I'm not a snob. I just don't like a whole lot of stuff.
Because I know because some German beers, it's generally better not to refrigerate. Do you refrigerate it?
This one was refrigerated.
Okay.
So it's actually quite good refrigerated, but I am definitely a fan of, with German beers, doing it more room temperature.
Or cellar temperature. If you have a good spot in like a basement where it's cool.
a kind of a cool, like if it's, Michigan summer where it's like, humid as hell and 90 degrees out like it was last summer. Like, no, don't have it room temperature. That'd be gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that at boiling point? Yeah, that's
pretty close. But like,
think
with that caveat, it can be cold or warm. It's good both ways.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty solid beer if you just want like a great beer for just anything. So it goes with almost anything too.
Well, if anyone did stick with us this long, I know we've been recording for a while. Well, thank you. And we're going to try to be doing one of these once a week, for the foreseeable future. And if you have anything you kind of want us to talk about or fun things that you want to jump in the conversation, we want this to be about everyone, not just the three of us shouting into the void.
Which we're pretty good at doing.
Yeah, we do that quite a lot.
We
just
do.
Look at the views on our videos. Of course, we do that quite a lot.
Especially the circle review. Watch that.
What was the circle? I didn't even watch that one.
Movie review. Yeah,
I know. I didn't even watch either one.
Nobody watched it. I had to edit it.
Yeah.
This doesn't count.
Let's say coming out. I know we're gonna have another Getting Over It video here coming up. I think we'll probably have another game review or something else coming out from Jim. And I know we have that so far. Maybe a live stream, depending on how the weekends go. Peter and I acting stupid on a game. If there's anything you kind of want us to do or play, I know some people wanted us to make more zany characters. I'd love to do that. Just kind of let us know. We're up to do kind of anything on that. So,
or even show you how to do different character builds in different systems. Like,
I think that's
that too.
another one we should do.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good to do.
Let us know what you want to see, basically.
Yeah.
We'll do it. We're kind of whoring ourselves out like that. So,
And say anything, you can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. I think you can find us at Roll Review, other variations of that. And everyone have a good night.
cheers.